Well, hello and welcome, everyone. So great to have you join us today for this episode of HCAI podcast on AI for website planning. I'm PJ, the producer and, of course, the UX designer on this podcast, and I'll be here in the LinkedIn chat, of course, to help guide the conversation. So I'll answer any questions that as we go along. As always, we always reserve a 15 minutes for Q&A, and please feel free to drop your questions into the chat throughout the whole episodes, and we'll do our best to cover as many as we can.
Thank you, PJ. And hi, everyone. I'm Laura, an independent experience design strategist and co host on the HCAI podcast. I'm excited to dive into today's topic with you. We're thrilled to welcome Arthur Makliarevsky. Oof, I knew I was going to mess that up. I'm sorry, Arthur. But thank you for being part of our discussion. Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Thank you for
definitely. Thanks
having
for
me.
joining us. I'm really happy. Yeah, I
This
was
is
so
my
happy to
first
have you
webinar,
here.
so give
That's
I hope I
exciting.
get a little leeway.
Perfect. Well, thank you for doing your first webinar with us, and we call it our podcast as well. But as Jan is not joining us today, we'll be taking over a little bit of our intro. So we just want to make sure that before we hop into session, we always like to give a quick note about the mention of AI in our podcast. So when we talk about AI, we're not just focusing on generative AI, like ChatGPT, for example. We'll be discussing a broad range of AI applications. So especially particularly like the ones that are used in UX design and research. So in Arthur's episode today, it's going to be a great example how AI can goes above, just generative AI space. So again, thanks Arthur for being us today. We always do this and I love it. So when we start our interviews, we always ask a short rapid fire questions to our guests so that we promote human-centered and human-first approaches. So I would say that we have to thank Roy Opatada Olande. I'm so sorry if I pronounced this wrong, but he was actually the one that actually created these rapid fire questions via his podcast, Scaling Research. So thank you for letting us use these questions for our guests. So my first question, are you ready, Arthur?
Let's go.
All right. So where do you live currently?
Currently, I reside in the lovely Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Ooh, okay. Which I've never been there, but I'd love to go. Would you rather speak to an animal or every human language in the world?
Ooh, I think I'd like to. I go for every human language. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Do you prefer early mornings or late nights?
These days, I'm into early mornings.
Yeah, me too, actually. This has been a new routine for the last 2 weeks. Been up at 6 a.m. Has that been going well for you?
Yeah, it's sort of a family tradition to get my son on the bus at that time. So yeah, it's great. It's been years like that, and feels great.
Awesome. If I would
Mhm.
ask you a question about a house of a view, so would you like to prefer to see the mountains or the ocean?
I'm an ocean guy.
Ocean.
Yeah.
Okay. And last one, a favorite. We're always curious to know about this one. What is your favorite dessert?
Oh, now how much time do we have?
I don't know.
I'd
It's up to you.
say I'd say my favorite dessert would be it's something very exotic. It's Russian, but it's influenced by the French invasion of Napoleon. So it's called Napoleon.
Okay.
And if you could find it online, it's an amazing way of. It takes 2 days to create, and it's
Oh,
really yummy.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look into that. Maybe we can share a link
Mhm.
with our audience as well.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, this is it for me. I'm gonna go hide in the back and let Laura and you continue this conversation. I'll jump in time to time, but for now, enjoy the chat.
Good talking. Thank you,
Thanks,
Z.
PJ. And thank you, Arthur, again for making time, for being here with us today. Um, we usually want to start this conversation with getting a bit of a background on who you are, how you came to be, essentially. So tell us a little bit more about your background in design, in product, as a product lead. I know that you've been a creative director in the past as well. How did your career begin in product, and how is it unfolding today?
Okay, great question. Well, I know it doesn't look like it, but I'm a pre-internet generation. So when I was just finishing grad school at NYU ITP, internet was coming out into its commercial phase, and I was learning HTML 1.0. So my background prior to that was animation, 3D, computer graphics, Photoshop 1.0. And once I quickly got into working part time while going to school, I was basically the internet boy at ad agencies, and basically did everything that you needed to do to make a web page from scratch. And as my career progressed, there was a time when Flash took over, and it was the choice of the internet experience at the time. It was quite immersive, it was quite magical, creative. And again, I was doing both the coding and the design and animation at various boutique agencies in New York City, working for, let's say, Razorfish, Tribal DDB, all these big boutique high-end agencies to make really immersive experiences that Flash provided. And then as the technology was evolving quickly, Flash was moving away and got into a much more, mobile phone space, and it evolved, beyond that. And as my career progressed, I basically had to start to choose where I wanted to kind of spend my time and my skills into evolving. And I realized I wasn't probably the best coder. I enjoyed it, but it was not as good as everything else I was doing on the product side and talking with programmers. And so I kind of took a creative technologist role, being researching technology, understanding what it can be doing, and working with other developers to kind of iterate and innovate, and seeing what it can do. So heavy more on product UX, doing still hands-on design every single pixel. And I was at that time already had my own little design studio with another team of developers, both in New York and now in South America. And we just had, a nice run with doing a lot of other web apps of all kinds for startups and agencies and such. And one of the things that kept happening to me as part of that workflow was every time I encountered a new project, I had to kind of do the initial auditing and due diligence of understanding what that web, especially if it's a web-based project, which most of them were at the time, I had to figure out and make head and sense of like what we have, what did the client had today, what is in their space competitively, what's in the market. And all that stuff took a lot of time, just clicking around, manually researching things. So being the lazy creative technologist that I was, I always inclined to automate my processes as much as possible to free up my and and that's when the idea hit me to kind of see what's possible with the technology at the time that day. And it was the really good timing because there was a lot of advancements in what they called virtual headless Chrome and just cloud-based automation. And so, yeah, it was mature enough to start putting together a prototype. And I speckled something together. And I thought, well, I like it for myself. If it's solving my own pain points and it's saving me a bunch of time, I mean, like days of work, I thought, okay, there's got to be a product here finally. And started to put it around my network to get feedback, of course, and feedbacks are really good from other product people. So it uh, benefit to it. My past entrepreneurial escapades, there were 5 prior to that. This wasn't my first, by the way. Along the
Got
way,
it.
as I was running my studio, ventured into other types of very different things. Some are more consumer based and marketplaces and what have you. And every time I try to do something, you're always starting to encounter like, well, there's challenges on all aspects of starting a new online business, but one of them obviously is like the market. The market has to be ready for this idea that you want to put out, and needs to have product market fit. There needs to be people on the other side that are able and willing to kind of give it a try and take the time to pick up this new solution that you may have. And so that was always a challenge with my other ideas, with different levels of degrees of success, but nothing really took off. And um, I started to think, okay, if I ever do something again, I need to be more practical rather than just something really out there, which I was doing before.
That's good guidance.
Yeah.
Kind of see the landscape, almost the ecosystem, first and foremost, right? Or as you're building an idea. Is that what I'm gathering from what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, really to be aware of like how big of a pain this is, and if it's if you have it, if how real is it, because everybody has their own quirks and pain points and things, but it's there's always a danger to think like, well, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of other people that feel the same way I do. Naturally, that's like your ego talking, of course, but
Mm.
you are able to obviously validate and test that, and then sometimes you may be in the right area initially, but then you may need to continue exploring. And I've been on this exploration for the last 7 years with visual sitemaps, and still learning and still exploring, because one of the core tenets of technology is that it's very um, ephemeral and it's very malleable. Like a company and an idea starts out 1 year one way, and they may do okay in one aspect or two aspects of it, but then maybe a tiny weird feature that somebody puts in and doesn't really, people don't think much of it, suddenly turns into the major thing about it, and next thing you know, you have Instagram. So
Right.
it has that allure, and it takes a lot of focus and discipline to read the tea leaves all the time. And I think every year, I kind of go through a process of observing like where this needs to take shape. And with this whole groundswell of AI coming fast and furious, and it's not obviously a trend that is going to come and go. It's a question of now, like, how does it take shape and hold in what we're doing? And so I'm basically exploring that, and yeah.
So I mean, that gets us to our, like, you easily segued into our second question here, which is the fact that you've created a product named Visual Sitemaps.
Mhm.
So you mentioned this has been in motion for 7 years. Can you step back 7 years from now and tell us why visual sitemaps? Why is that important? And where did that begin? Like, what was the need in the market, or the need in your the space of work, right? That made you think I should create something like this.
It was, like I said, it was solving my own pain point initially. Every time I had to have a new web project, I spent days clicking through the client's website or other competitors' website and do my analysis on what's going on. So that just took a lot of time, and I wanted to automate that process and have a way to essentially generate all those screenshots in the context of an information architecture um, graph map to kind of create an understanding of what we have today, what is connected to what's a priority, what the layout is like, how many types of pages, everything that information architecture brings to you. And it's an important aspect of an initial a kickoff of a project and for auditing, but also, as websites are fundamentally a living organism that constantly need to be improved and optimized and experimented with. Information architecture is the skeleton of the backbone of that site. And so I decided, why not, instead of just have that as a one-time kind of diagnosis and object, why not make everything work around that? Instead of going off to some other tools where you kind of use spreadsheets traditionally and these other disjointed things, why not put everything in the context of planning your site and understanding it from that visual aspect, how we are humanly, trained to do. And so, and that enabled to have more people on the team who are on the web project team, and the customer who's maybe not so adaptive to technology, for them to actually wrap their mind around like this project that they have, and to be able to create planning tools and features around it to work efficiently in a new way, more cohesive and holistic.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And what an incredible need that is to fill. Um, I want to kind of now fast forward to what you had touched upon, which is AI is now a thing, and now you're incorporating, it sounds like, AI into visual site maps. Tell us how that's working, and why it's important for AI to be part of this tool.
Yeah, I think AI for us was, as soon as we were able to find some working version of it in the context of what we do. It's like any other technology that, it creates a certain type of magic for you. It will make some processes go faster. It will make you see something and analyze data visually in a different way that you've never had before. So to us, it made sense to use anything at the disposal as soon as it's mature and stable enough to unlock more and more of our base product, which is, what are you seeing on your website architecturally and visually. So prior to LLMs, we were already playing with a visual AI framework that basically allowed us to compare any kind of visual changes that would go on between a site as it evolved. And so that just introduced a lot of use cases for example, quality assurance. So a lot of the main challenges teams have, developers and designers, is they want a consistency from their release to release. Something maybe that is live and is already approved, has a certain form and layout and everything properly set. When somebody releases another minor update, everything has to be consistent. Things can't just go out of whack. And so the standard way of doing that quality assurance is manually, and it takes a lot of time. And so we, as part of our offering, we have an aspect to do automated visual QA testing with AI, and I could show you that in a while. And as part of that, we also found out, like unexpectedly, that people used this particular AI feature for other use cases that we didn't anticipate, and that was also quite surprising, specifically to track changes of other people's content that would happen to change. So if you want to keep tabs to a competitor or something in the marketplace, as long as it's an accessible URL, we were able to track those changes. If a photo changed, if a button changed color or moved or disappeared, if a page was added or page removed, all those things we would now be able to notify you with our AI. But this was like a mega feature that we kind of found maybe a few years after our core features. Our core features were, let's go make a crawler and let's go map the hell out of a website, and let's not miss any page, and let's know exactly from head to toe what do we have. And that never used to be able to be done by humans because it was too tedious. It took too much time. And so there would be a lot of gaps and errors when they do things manually. And well, we just automated it to perfection.
Got it. Got it. So then AI is now like next level automation for visual sitemaps, to continue to streamline the work, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And we've just, I think, scratched the surface, which is for me very exciting, because now with this whole new wave of the LLM and generative AI, we could now unlock even more. There's so many things we're looking at. So it's very exciting, and we're doing the R&D on that today. But yeah, I think it's really going to take over. I think essentially you're going to see almost every application utilize AI to enhance what they're already doing in some capacity. The devil is in the details. It's how well do you match those two things together to unlock and make something new.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, I think it's a perfect moment to show our audience what you're talking about and maybe do like a 10-minute walkthrough of the app, so that they understand how it works and also, again, how AI is part of this process.
Yeah, I'm super interested because, I work with a lot of clients and websites. And when you jump in as a consultant, you're trying to, it's like, do you have a sitemap? Is it clear? As a designer, you want to see all of these pages. And sometimes, like, you figure it on the spot, right? So if I'd be really curious to see how we can use this tool and I can facilitate my work, especially as a consultant coming in with a client that might not have that, and say, hey, listen, this is what I see. This is what is happening. Is this actually, did you ever look at it this way? So I'm super curious to know more about this app. And yeah, we can definitely look in together, and I'd love to know more. So yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll share your screen. Give me 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm gonna hide ourselves just so to give a bit more real estate. But yeah, please walk us through.
Okay. So I'll start you where everything kind of starts. It's basically a crawling form. And generally everyone crawls. There's three ways of crawling, but most of the time everyone crawls with this default way, where you just type in a URL. PJ, do you have a URL I could test run?
At the moment, I don't have one because it's, client confidential.
Okay.
But I can. I'm sure
No
you
worries.
have one in mind. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just
So
because I
you
don't. Yeah.
basically you type in any URL. I mean, confidentially
I
wise,
do
like we can
Apple.
only crawl sites that are publicly accessible.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other caveats where we can crawl private sites, amazingly enough, but only if you have the proper cookies, and if the site uses cookies to
Yep.
access the private aspects of your site, like a staging site
Okay.
or an intranet or things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
if cookies are the thing, we can crawl that, and it's got a lot of use cases, obviously, in that sense. So you type in the URL from here, and right away we have a little Google will say generally how many pages that it thinks it has since it last crawled, just to get a sense of scope. And then you have some basic configurations like, well, this is the New York Times, so we're not going to crawl 23 million pages, but like we want to crawl, let's say, the first page, the home page, and it always starts crawling with whatever URL you put in. It could be the main one, or it could be a specific directory, it'll start from there. And then you have some other powerful advanced settings. So for example, if it's an e-commerce site, you can specify, like, do you want it to ignore pagination, because maybe those pages are repeated, or any other kind of parameters that you want it to ignore. Do you want to exclude any kind of directories that, again, you don't really need and want to show in the sitemap? So you could type in, let's say, maybe a jobs directory, or I don't know, blog directory, and it'll just wholesale ignore that. Keywords, maybe you don't want anything with dog, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And vice versa, you could just have it be only including directories and only specific groups of keywords.
Okay.
And other controls as well. So that's basically the main way of doing a crawl. But you could also crawl a list of very specific URLs that you're only interested in. And we have clients like IBM who have like a massive 1 million+ web site. And what they do is, instead of having to crawl the whole site, they want to crawl specific areas of the site only. And they already know which URLs those are. And so they have a CSV or an XML file of those URLs. And then our crawl is just based on that. So all you do is just click on crawl and close, and voila. And below here, you have already crawls that are already done. What does a crawl look like when it's done? It looks something like this. And what you'll see here is a specific architecture that's hierarchical. And we have two kinds of flavors. We have a view that is based on a directory structure of the URL. So every green node here represents a directory. So if you look at the URL of a page, you'll see that /experiences is part of the URL, and that's why it's shown up here. So it's easy to see the structure through the directory. But we also have another view, which is called the referral, parent-child referral. And that's basically just going to show you all the child pages that it first found as it crawled the parent page. And that's more of an experience that an actual user will have go through that architecture. So there's two lenses. Cool. Yeah, there's two lenses there. Okay, so once you have that, we have screenshots that are high resolution of every single page, and from there, you can start planning things. So, for example, you can click on any area. You could mention a team member. You could say, please change this. You can share this with a customer. Have this comment public. You could keep it private just for your internal reasons for your team. You could resolve the comment or keep it open. You could have a bunch of comments here and see all of them listed, nice and organized by their different states. And as you start making comments more and more and more, this is the place to kind of start planning those type of content changes. Additionally,
Arthur, may I ask a quick question? Are there any specific AI features or I guess options as you're walking us through these feature menus?
Yeah, I'll get to that. There is a major one, but at this particular stage, it's just basic, straightforward planning features that we have with tags, so you could tag any page and things like that. Searching as well is just pretty straightforward. And then when it comes to AI, what we'll do is you have this ability to there's two ways that we're using AI. One is in a semi-automated way, and one is in a fully automated way. And essentially, you're able to use AI to compare, as I said before, any two sites that you crawled. And you simply, this is a whole list of sites that are crawls that we've already made. And you just basically select any two in this manner. And it could be the same URL, or it could be two different URLs. Usually you want to compare the same ones, or you want to maybe compare a live site with a staging site. And then you select the kind of how sensitive you want the comparison to be, if it's like pixel perfect sensitivity or just major changes you want to compare. You select that, and then you click on compare. Then within a few seconds, it starts running the report and the analysis. And the results will be here. And here you'll notice comparison results and how close things were in the comparison. And for example, this is a page that was crawled, for IBM for their artificial intelligence pages. And you'll see here a page on the left that was compared to the same page. As you can see, the URLs are the same, but the content changed. And if you toggle easily, you'll notice everything in red is different. And it quantified everything. The similarity is 80%. So that's a huge productivity increase here, because you're now able to flag any of these and filter out any of these results, and then share that with your team and have them act accordingly.
I'm curious, Arthur, if is that just that this page kind of like snuck in there and no one saw it, or is there a reason why IBM wants to have two different versions of that page?
Yeah, good question. It's not that they're two different versions at the same time. It's basically the main use case is to take a snapshot and audit the state of a site at one point in time, let's say the first of the month. And then maybe the team goes off for a week and does all sorts of changes to the information architecture, adds more pages, removes some, maybe updates some designs based on better UX feedback that they receive. And then they update that site on day 10. And then you could run the comparison between version 1 that you had on day 1 and then the version that you had on day 10. And for you as a product owner, you want to ensure that maybe out of the 100 pages that were worked on, that all of them are all consistent, and maybe the 2 or 3 that had content changes are the only ones that should come up in this report. Because sometimes you have a lot of human error where something breaks and some other existing pages, don't retain their consistency, or somebody in the marketing department went ahead and took the initiative to make some updates, and you as the product owner or designer didn't know about it. So this will basically tell you, okay, how many pages were added or removed. You'll see that here. And then what was the result of the comparison? How close are these comparisons? Was it 100%? Was it 97%? Was it really bad, between 50%? And that alerts different team members based on that. That's one main use case that's like the internal use for consistent quality assurance. But another one is simply saying, you know what? I want to keep tabs on, some competitor site here, and this particular directory, and it's going to be this one page, and I want to run that crawl, and I want to run this every single day, or I want it every month. And once it runs, I also want it to compare. Every day you make a site crawl, I want to compare the last one I made to the first one I made, or the last 2. And then anything that you notice change, I want you to tell me or my team to know about it. So that's another major use case, extremely powerful for competitive analysis and market due diligence and research.
That's great to know, Arthur. The reason why I was asking you too is because, to bring this back to, again, like a way that AI, I think, is a very attractive option for businesses today, is like for micro segmentation, for globalization, right? If they're trying to expand into different markets, etc. And so I know that AI can be a very powerful tool for helping these businesses kind of understand different demographics and different needs, which ultimately also means they have to offer, right, a different version, for lack of a better word, of a particular uh, page, right? So, as an example, if in Seattle, what they really care about is technology, right? Like, what are the tech specs? But in Miami, they really just want to know, like, why should I buy this? IBM, for example, can know, okay, this is what I want to show in Miami, and this is what I want to show in Seattle. And so I'm just curious as to how maybe a use case like that fits into a visual sitemap, if at all.
Yeah, that's an interesting use case. Well, what you're talking about is planning slightly different variants of the information architecture. And it's basically termed localization for different markets. So
That's
what
right.
you can do is you could, let's say, start with a generic crawl of the main site that is like the core, baseline of your content and what you have. So let's say this is one of those sites. But then you want to make something that is a variant of that. And the way to simply do that is you click to this part here to duplicate the map, and then you put in /Miami, right? And in 2 seconds, with no extra charge or cost, you have a copy of that architecture ready to go and to be manipulated and sculpted based on the needs for that particular initiative. And from
Got it.
here, you could go in and say, well, in this page, I want to change this design to something else. I want to change the content brief for my team to something else. I want to attach these Google Docs with my content team to have alignment on the content here, that so I can attribute and see what is going into this page, files and SEO data as well, that we also, by the way, scrape when we go to the website, and then you could change and create that more localized based on your strategies. And all that layer, this content planning layer, is on every single page here, along with a top layer for the whole map itself. So that would be the way to plan these versions, these localization versions. Obviously, AI can help with generating like the content. Use your AI gen tool of choice to do that. There's some great ones for that. But then all those that content that you generate, you could have that linked to here as a source of truth with a Google Doc or any other files that you're generating with that. So the team can go and have a place where it's the source of truth for the planning of the site.
Right.
Now,
This is amazing. May I also follow up, Arthur, on that? And again, to continue to dig into the AI piece, since that is the interest, right, of our podcast. How does visual sitemaps as a tool, how can it be leveraged to help you with that type of localization work? Like, is there a very special process that you have to go through to like teach your language model to look for something different or work differently in that scenario?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't have a lot of experience in best practices for localization, but I could guarantee that it's if you feed. Here's what I would do. I mean, again, I'm not maybe the best person, but if I had to take a stab at it, I would start with one of the things we can do, for example, here with the map is we could export the architecture in different formats. And that format, for example, let's say a JSON format, it's a very particular type of file that represents the information architecture of the site, all the page relationships, the page titles, all of that is in the JSON file. Not and even and the SEO we have as well in this. The SEO and the content is in the CSV export. So if you take those two files that essentially are everything that you see here, except let's say the actual screenshots. We also do export the screenshots as well as a different file. So you have all of those elements separately. You can feed that these days to the AI. I wouldn't feed everything all into it at once. I don't think it's able to handle that kind of task yet, but you can do it iteratively, step by step. And what you can do is you could say, okay, here is my information architecture as per this JSON file. The LLMs are very good at understanding JSON structures. And it will ingest that and it'll say, okay, great. I understand this is what you have. This is the scope of your site. Fantastic. And then you'll feed it maybe the CSV file and you say, hey, now take a closer look at, now that you have the structure, now you see the SEO that we have for this stuff, and any other content for those pages also in the CSV file or in other docs. And put that together and say, well, I would like to make a version of an information architecture for a site dedicated toward this market in this particular, with these particular needs. And once you outline that to the AI, it will be able to generate a JSON file or CSV file that will solve that, or at least get you a draft of what that could look like. Now, what I just described to you is something that we are R&D working on, so that instead of you exporting all these data artifacts and then going to the AI separately and feeding it and then doing this kind of piecemeal, we're going to be doing this all for you in one shot. It's not out yet, but the idea is that AI will eventually say, based on your business needs and goals and localization and any other kind of criteria that you want, including the competitor's information architecture, the competitor
Wow.
space, the business sector that you're in, and any other
Mhm.
information. Let me identify any kind of opportunities in order for you to compete and have something as good or better than what is out there, so that it could identify gaps, it could identify areas that need more support, all of that
Opportunities.
stuff
Yeah.
we do.
Mhm.
So we're working hard on that research, but you could already start doing that on your own with AI in this kind of ad hoc kind of way, based on the
That's
crawls that we provide and the data that you could export from us.
that's amazing. Thank you, Arthur, for walking us through that. I just want to be cognizant of time. We have about 12 minutes left. Before we wrap up with our final question, anything else that you might want to walk us through that our UX design community and AI aficionados should really know about this tool?
Yeah, I'm very proud. The last major release we did took 14 months, just me and a developer in Brazil, very talented, to make a new part of our Visual Sitemap's family called Visual Flows. And you're probably familiar, a lot of UX designers are familiar with tools like Miro and FigJam, Lucidcharts. Nothing new here. We just made our own version that is a lightweight version of this inside the ecosystem of Visual Sitemaps, so that when you have a project and you're doing these crawls and analysis and you're ready to continue to do user journeys and funnels and all sorts of other UX needs, let's say this is this shows a particular user journey for an e-commerce site, and you want to throw together screenshots, and you want to create maybe a lo-fi wireframe architecture from scratch. You can use our templates that are purpose-built to do that very, very quickly. And it's all free, like the other paid competitors. We want to give back to the universe, and this will always be free, and it's always unlimited, and it's built exactly how, in terms of UX, the way that you expect it to be with these other tools. It's just inside our ecosystem, and these are all embedded, so you could use them inside your documentation, wikis, post them online, and such. And it's a nice way to continue flowing with UX and in the context of information architecture and user journeys and everything involved with planning processes. We have that covered. It's quite extensive. Like I said, it took 14 months of fine tuning, and we're very proud of it. So yeah, Visual Flows. It's got its own URL, but it's also comes free as part of Visual Sitemaps. So yeah, I encourage everyone to give it a try as part of the crawling processes that we offer in the AI comparisons that we do.
Thank you so much, Arthur. This is amazing, and I'm hoping that our audience is definitely engaged and thinking about giving this a try, even if it's just to play with the idea, right, of not only generating an incredible sitemap, in like a snap of a finger, it really feels like, but also so that they can like play with that idea. At least this is something that I'm inviting our audience to do, is like play with the idea of like where AI could really help, right? Like of the many things that AI has the possibility to do, where could it support the work that you need to do within this space in terms of competitive analyses, content strategy? I mean, you name it. I feel like there's so many layers that can be placed into this. And I'm sure, Arthur, you would really benefit from like so many different use cases, so many ways in which people can really leverage this powerful tool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's we're in a new space, and it's super exciting, and it's super fast, and the timing is really good. And just look out for what we're about to do next. I'm really excited about it, and the way that we make this stuff amazing. My little secret is it's not really me. It's actually all the people who come to the site and bother my buddy Jeff on live support, and sometimes I'm there and ask all sorts of questions and make all sorts of feedback, because it's the most fun part about this whole process is working in unison with the market and amazing new designers, new thinkers, older, much more experienced folks who've seen everything and are excited about AI and where it can go. Like, we are open, and we encourage that level of like building together, and it's great because these things are also not so easy, to do them right. And so I always work iteratively and connected with all my folks who come to the site and who want to be part of that. I'm there. We're there.
That's awesome. And I love that piece of essentially what you're talking about is user research, right? This is user research. You are ingesting the questions that are coming from your customers, from your users, and essentially working off of that. So like, thank you for your human-centered process and incorporating their feedback into the product. I mean, that's a dream for those of us in UX.
Yeah, 100%. Without that, really, I'm really grateful for that, and I'm really grateful for you giving me the space to share. Thank you.
Oh my gosh! Well, we're grateful for you, Arthur. Last question: what is next for Visual Sitemaps? Any interesting features you're working on, or big plans you have?
Yeah, the next major thing is making this visualization a bit smarter and more informative. So integrating with Google Analytics is our next major thing to give you more of give you the vitals that you need to see how healthy things are, how things are flowing, seeing metrics that are important to you. I think that's going to be clutch. And then going right into the AI R&D that I mentioned to see where it could unlock more of information architecture and provide better, more optimal structures and suggestions based on many more elements of surrounding your site and your competitive space to inform you to make better decisions. So we're really excited about that because that's definitely a new technology and it comes with its own challenges. We want it to be consistent. We want it to be super smart. We also want to use it for even UX teardowns as well. Let's analyze the UX of the landing page. Let's figure out why it's not converting. All that stuff is all in our fingertips because we're crawling, we're touching. It's all there. It's just a question of what's going to really move the needle, and is the AI informed enough to provide a good solution that's accurate, that is good, and seeing blind spots that human beings just don't. That's really where we're going.
I have a secret wish to bring you onto the podcast a second time around to talk about how you're training those language models, right? Because that is a big part of UX and AI that I think we're starting to learn more and more about. But as a researcher myself and big picture strategist, I think that it's key, right? How we train that AI is so key to the work that it can actually do. So anyway, we'll stay in touch, Arthur. This might be like a couple seasons down the line, but we would love to learn that from you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I'd love to know more about that too.
Yeah. No, it's constantly changing. It's super fast, and I'd love to learn it too. We're learning it. Everybody's got their own ways of doing things, and once you think you figured it out, somebody comes along next week and says, "Nope, scrap that. That's inefficient. Try this." And it's that insane. But it's getting there. This year I think it's reached a whole new level of utility, whereas before I think it was kind of like gimmicky, but now it's exponential, and it's a good time to keep your nose sharpened on that. So yeah, very exciting. I'm glad you guys are focusing on this.
Thank you. And we're grateful and glad that you are focused on what you are focused on, because I know just from looking at PJ's face, she's like, I want this, I need this.
I want to try it. I'm like, I'm definitely going to give it a go. I need to try it because I would need that so much right now.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure a lot of designers are feeling the same.
Yeah. And we have an always free version that does a lot of basic stuff. So you could definitely play with it. And then we even have the full featured set, also a 7-day free trial. So you can play with that. We have videos. You can see how everything works. So give it a shot, kick the tires, and hopefully, it'll rock your world.
That's the way.
I'll keep you posted.
Exploration for all of us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Another tool to check out and see how I can use it in my workflow. So, well,
and
I just want to let
audience
everyone
as well.
Yeah. Well,
right?
that's
like
it.
Our audience,
right?
We did add your link, Arthur, to the chat, to the event. So for those of you who are just listening, visualflows.io is where you want to go for the 7-day trial.
Sitemap as well. Sitemap, the visual flow.
Visual Sitemaps is the core one. You'll find the flows inside of that, and then if you want to check out flows on its own, it's Visual Flows. But Visual Sitemaps is where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I can share the visual flow link as well. I haven't shared it yet, but I will as well at the end of our chat. I'm just looking at time, so we're ready at time, I guess.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to thank you so much, Arthur, for sharing these insights with us. And of course to our audience, we really appreciate you tuning in. And of course, as we always say, your thoughts and feedback. We talked about that already, but for us, it's also invaluable. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any ideas, how we can improve our podcast. Laura, myself, and Jan, of course, would love to hear from you. So if you found this episode helpful, be grateful. If you could share it with your colleagues or friends, might also enjoy it. I know I will. And don't forget to give us a follow to stay in the loop for future episodes. And of course, so that you don't miss out on what's happening next. So on that note, I wish you a wonderful, fantastic rest of your day, wherever you are joining us from. And we'll be talking soon. See ya.
Take care, everyone. Have a great week.